Substack has really only been known as a platform for writers, but I will predict that there will be more video and audio on Substack, not only because it's cool, but also because Substack, the company, has been publishing video podcasts and video content. So I see that they are pushing video. Welcome to The Format by Chorus Studios. Technology is always changing, and so is the format, or how we produce and consume media. The Format is a monthly newsletter on Substack and a podcast, where I, Flo of Chorus Studios, talk to you, producers, co-hosts, founders, about the newest and the best practices in podcasting today and tomorrow. From technique to technology, we will explore what new AI tools are podcasters using and why. How to prep for a podcast interview as a host or a guest. Which mics are best for your budget? And even, what happens in your brain when you listen to a podcast? This series will allow me an opportunity to continue learning and growing as a podcast producer and share those learnings with you. So I hope you'll join me on The Format on Substack. Hello, and welcome to the Flo Show. I stumbled because I was like, should I say the Flo Show or Flo's Office, Flo's Desk? I don't know. Flo Show is definitely catchy. Well, anyway, I'm here because I thought it would be great to record an audio version of my most recent blog about podcasting on Substack. I recently wrote a piece where I broke down everything I really like and everything I don't like as much about hosting my podcast about podcasting, The Format, on Substack. That means I get the RSS feed from Substack, whatever files I put in, it distributes. So it's really interesting to go from a podcast-specific hosting site like Transistor FM, or there's other ones like that, and to try out this new platform. And I think overall I mostly like it for what I'm trying to do at the moment. It does provide a traditional RSS feed, so you can take that and put that elsewhere if you want to distribute it on a platform that they don't automatically connect to. But first of all, let's step back and I'll go through the topics I wrote about in my blog. So I talked about how my friend Angela Hollowell was the first one to recommend I check out Substack. She's a fellow podcaster and video producer, and we all are trying to get the work out there on social media, to our friends and family at least, to our followers at least. And she was excited about Substack because, number one, the email newsletter feature where whatever content you create, it will automatically send to your email list that you can easily import. And also, it's a social platform, so it will recommend your content to other people on the platform, so you can get subscribers organically as well. And also, it allows you to collect donations or funding for your project, similar to Patreon, where it's a monthly donation or a monthly subscription to paid content, which is really helpful for creators. It kind of just makes us feel like, okay, maybe one day the work that I'm doing will produce money. That's exciting. Just the hope. And you can pretty much guarantee that a lot more people will see your content if they're getting it in their email versus in their social media algorithm, which is very unpredictable. And other than TikTok, is almost useless. Anyway, so she was excited about it for those reasons, and I trust her opinion. So I had to check it out. And what I really loved about it was those things, of course, but also you could set up a very beautiful branded platform for your content. And I'm not a branding specialist. I'm not a graphic designer, but I love branding and I do really care about the visuals of my work. So that's important to me. And then also it supported podcasting. So I was like, I'm going to have to try this out because I think it'd be awesome to automatically be able to very easily upload written content, visual content, auditory content all in one place for my followers or subscribers to find and for me to easily upload. So that's been really fun. So let's get into a little more specifics, thumbs up and thumbs not so up from my last couple of months. I've technically been on for 7 months, but I have released 5 podcast episodes on Substack using their podcast feature, using only their RSS feed. Well, I should take that back. When I first started the format, I wasn't sure how much I would really like the Substack hosting. So I initially had it hosted on both Transistor, which I usually use, and Substack. And that became very confusing and just extra work. So I just said, you know what? I'm sure there's pros and cons to all of these options, but let's just go with Substack and see how it goes. Just checking how I look. I look okay. By the way, I have a new camera. It's the Elgato face cam, which I was recommended by Anna Xavier, and I'm using my, what is it? What are you? My Shure microphone. I always want to call it a Rode. It's not a Rode. It's a Shure microphone. I'm ADD. I'm getting off topic. Let's get back to the point. Big ups for publishing your pod blog. That's just what I call it. It's a podcast with a blog on Substack. Built-in permission networking via email and in-app. So once you join the Substack community, the app will both promote your content on the platform and to your newsletter subscribers directly. And it also will send out some emails that may or may not feature your content. You can't predict it, but it may also be promoting your content through email that you aren't triggering, which would be great. About 30% of my followers found me organically through Substack, which is pretty cool. There's an opportunity to take advantage of recommendations for very good discoverability. So right now, a feature I really enjoy is if I find another newsletter or pod blog that I like about podcasting, about content creation, about storytelling, about branding, I can recommend it on my website so that my followers can find it. An example of this is my friend Angela has a podcast and a Substack called Please Hustle Responsibly. I promote her show, her Substack on my Substack, and she promotes mine on hers because I've gotten like 3 or 4 subscribers from her recommendation, which is pretty good. Also, if you want to do a video version of your podcast, you don't have to worry about uploading 2 different versions, the video and the audio. You can just upload the video to the podcast episode on Substack, and it will distribute the audio to audio only from the video to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Deezer, and also that same file can be viewable as a video on your Substack page. I also like to upload the video podcast to my YouTube channel because some people love YouTube and it's not that hard for me to do. So it's a little extra step, but I do that as well. There's an opportunity for your followers to support your work financially, either just because they want to or because you have paid only content. I'm playing around with this. I will make some blogs that are valuable takeaways from different interviews I've done, and I'll make them paid only. I haven't done this very much because I want to grow my followers more than I want to make money at this point. But I think in the future, I could make more of my content paid only. And it's not a lot of money. It's $4 or $5 a month. And it means a lot to us. So that is awesome. Monetization. RSS feeds. So when you create your podcast on Substack, Substack will create an RSS feed for you the same way other podcast distribution platforms do. You'll need to go in and make sure it's connected to your Spotify account, your Apple Podcast account, but it's just as easy as any other distribution platform. I already talked about this, but I love that people can come to the format on Substack, which is its own branded webpage, and there's the video version, audio version, blogs, all of my content from my interviews is there. And they don't have to go from one platform to another to digest the content. And I think that's so cool. That's probably the thing that excites me the most about Substack. I already mentioned this. Beautiful design and fairly easy to use setup. So it took me a few days to set up my new website for the format, but it was easier than starting from scratch with like even something like Wix or Squarespace. because I care a lot about the brand aesthetics and I wanted it to match my company brand, I spent a lot of time thinking about what the name should be, how I'm going to explain the name, what the colors are, what the logo is. And that didn't take that long, but I thought it was fun. And then once that's all ready, you can just add it on to Substack and use your colors for your Substack page. And it's pretty easy. And then another thing to consider is wherever you're setting up your blog or your pod blog, you want to consider what community you're in, what types of people are there, what kind of content is there. And so far, Substack is very broad, which is great. I mean, I like entertaining content, fashion content. There's a decent amount of people on here writing about podcasting and writing about being a creative. That's great. I hope that there are even more. I will say I haven't seen as many podcasts that are hosted on Substack. I've seen a lot of podcasts that I already knew about have a Substack where they write about the podcast, but they don't upload any of the actual audio or video content to Substack. I'm not sure why. Probably just too much work. And also, so far, Substack has really only been known as a newsletter or a platform for writers. But I will predict that there will be more video and audio on Substack, not only because it's cool, but also because Substack, the company, has been publishing video podcasts and video content. So I see that they are pushing video. So if they are, as a company, supporting it, then it will be good for creators to upload video to their Substack. So not so ups for publishing your podcast on Substack. So there are some very niche podcast platforms that you may not have heard of, like Deezer or Player FM. I don't use them, but they might be popular in other countries and they might be recommended to connect to for distribution on other sites that are podcast specific, like Transistor FM. But on Substack, you have to go in and do it yourself. So it won't recommend some of the more niche platforms. So you have to go research them. But you can take your RSS feed from your Substack podcast and put it on other platforms like Deezer and Player FM, and it will work just fine. And I did that recently, and I've seen more international downloads or listens of my show. So I think it's worth it. A little extra work. Okay, this is my biggest pet peeve. And as I was writing about it, I realized probably why they do it. So mobile version of podcasts don't have links to Spotify, Apple, as it does on the web app. So Substack is an app that you can either view on the web or you can have it on your phone as an actual app. And on the web app, there are links to, on your episode page, there are automatic links if you've connected the accounts to listen to it on Spotify or Apple or any of those bigger YouTube, bigger platforms. But on the actual app on your phone, it's not an option. You have to listen to it on that app, on the Substack app. You can also go to Spotify and search for it. But unless you put the links in the text, which I do, it's not easy to find. So that's frustrating because a lot of people prefer to listen to their podcasts on their preferred streaming app like Spotify or Apple, and they don't want to listen on Substack. It's just not where they go to for their podcasts. That's annoying for me. And I have to put it in there manually. But I think the reason they do it is why any app would do it, which would be they don't want you to leave the app. The app it's better for the app if you stay in the app. If you leave the app for another app, it's not good for the app. So I think that's why they do it. But I wish they would change that because it's just industry standard to have links to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and other places to listen. So it's as a podcaster, I find that annoying. Okay, paid versus free podcast episodes is clunky and confusing to me. So admittedly, I haven't done any, or actually I played around and did release a paid only episode, and it sends you to a different link, a different version of the show on Apple and Spotify. So you can listen to it there if you have the correct connector link that you have through your paid membership of my Substack. But if you didn't follow the correct link, I think you might not find it on your podcast feed. So I think they've basically got it figured out, but it's kind of confusing to be reconsidered in the future. Podcast stats leave a lot to be desired. So unlike Transistor, which you can go in and see which episodes were listened to on specific days, on Substack you can't. It's very vague. They have decent stats, but they're not great. So that is something, as a podcaster, if I really wanted to grow this show and figure out what episodes were doing well, when and why, in association with other things, other marketing efforts I'm doing, I would want to know more about my podcast statistics or analytics. So in another way, everything has its pros and cons. And because Substack is so many things, it's awesome, but it's also a weakness in its own way. The same way, a good analogy is like if you have the Instagram app, you probably noticed there was a time where they had videos in a version on the app that felt like YouTube. And then they had Snapchat, which is now Stories. They have TikTok. They basically copy everything every other visual social media app is doing. And it, as a user, can be confusing. So I think there's that. Even for me, I've been using Substack for months now. I'm just now starting to understand what a node is, what a restack is, how people might find me organically through the social platform of it. If I could break it down, it's a newsletter platform where you can collect emails and distribute content through email. It's a content distribution platform for pretty much everything: podcasts, video, and written content. And it's a social media platform. It has the equivalent of what Facebook has for posts and your homepage, where you can see everyone you follow or subscribe to their posts, and people can find you because you liked their posts. You can repost things, basically. So, and there's also chat, similar to Facebook chat. So then you can email out a chat to your followers, and you can have a group chat. So it's just a lot going on, which is cool. But also, I think as a user, it can be like, what am I supposed to do? So there's that. Okay, so where I've landed for now, I think with anything in your business, it's important to ask yourself what your main goal is. So even though as a podcast or a pod blog, the format, it would be great to have as many listeners as possible. There are benefits to having a traditional podcast on a traditional platform like Transistor FM or just on YouTube or something like that. But I think for me, I really value the relationships and the quality of the followers. So I really want my subscribers and followers to get to know me. I want to build trust with them. I want to build community with them. So for me right now, it's not so much about having a big audience as it is about having a connection with my audience, potential clients, potential partners, collaborators. Those are all the kinds of relationships I want to foster through this pod blog. I also want to learn. It's also a platform for me to practice what I do or what I want to be doing for my clients. I haven't done a lot of blogging from my podcasting yet, but I'm doing blogging for myself. I'm trying out different ways of doing different formats of blogging and seeing how they do and building my confidence as a blogger, as a writer in relation to my podcast interviews, which I'm more comfortable with at this point. Putting myself out there, making this video is always, harder than you think. You're like, oh, it'll be no big deal. And then you're like, why have I put this off for 3 days? Oh, it's because I have to look at a camera and film myself. And then I have to look at it. And I don't really like that sometimes. So it's good to create content if you're a content creator. It's good to stay busy and put yourself out there, share your passion and learn from others and all that good stuff. So that's where I'm at with it. I think it's exciting. I think it offers enough, like the fact that it provides you with an RSS feed that you can take wherever you want is huge. If they didn't give you the RSS feed so that you could sign up for other distribution platforms outside of Substack, I don't think I would use it because I feel too caged as a creator, as a podcast creator. But I feel like that makes it doable. And then also, I'm really bad at sending out newsletters. I have like a mental block around it. So the fact that it just automatically asks me whenever I finish uploading an episode if I want to email my subscribers with the episode, really helps me actually email people. Otherwise, I wouldn't be emailing people. And I know working on your email list is really important as a business owner, and sharing your content via email is really important. And that's something I haven't been very good at. So this platform pushes me to do that and makes it easier for me to do that. Because I don't know if you guys have ever made a newsletter in like MailChimp or whatever, but it's a lot of work, like adding in the photo and it's like, you feel a lot of pressure. It has to be this great newsletter. But with this, I just feel less pressure. I feel like what I've put together is enough to email out, and that's exciting for me. So thank you guys so much for listening. I hope this was helpful. I do keep thinking of other things I want to add to this blog, and I'm going to try to keep adding them in terms of pros and cons of Substack. I'd love to hear what you think. If you have a podcast on Substack, what you found to be good and bad about it. If you're thinking about it and you have concerns, what those concerns are, yada, yada. Let me know. Hey, it's Flo. Are you or your business thinking about starting a podcast? Head to our website at chorus-studios.com and fill out the contact form to start a conversation.
Thank you for listening to The Format. Head to substack.com, that's substack.com, to subscribe to The Format on Substack for our next monthly episode and blog about the future of podcasting. Stay real.